The Threat Connect platform enables organizations to identify, manage, and block threats faster with threat intelligence, automation, and orchestration, providing security teams a platform to unite their people, processes, and technologies behind an intelligence-driven defense. Threat Connect helps increase visibility into networks and integrates with defensive tools to close the gap between threat detection and response. Get your free Threat Connect account today by visiting threatconnect.com/securityweekly. The average time between being hacked and realizing you've been hacked is 1 year. Can you afford to let an intruder roam your network for that long? Can your company weather the fallout when this comes to light? Black Hills Information Security can find the bad guys in your network and train you to do it yourself. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to find out how a hunt teaming engagement can help you find a persistent threat in your network. Onapsis is the leading provider of solutions to protect ERP systems from cyber attacks. Customers can secure their SAP and Oracle business-critical platforms from espionage, sabotage, and financial fraud risks. Visit them on the web at onapsis.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. This is a tech segment I put together on blocking ads and malware with Pi-hole in the cloud. Have you guys heard of Pi-hole before? We've done segments on this topic.
I've been hearing from your Pi-hole for 12 years. Something else.
So have many of our listeners, and I apologize.
We do not, in fact, shut our noise holes, meatbag.
Yes.
Thanks, Ben.
So, Joff, this actually ties back to a couple of tech segments that you and I did individually and somewhat together as well about blocking ads via DNS in your environment. And
absolutely.
One of the listeners, and then I think the project itself, reached out over Twitter and said, hey, we like do this, and it's all in a script. So that's essentially what Pi-hole is. You get a Raspberry Pi, and in one command, they basically configure DNS mask, light HTTPD, and set it all up for you, and you just point at it as your DNS, and you're off to the races. Now, they've come a long ways, actually, since then even. They've got a web interface that you can manage it all. So to kind of make a long story short, I had my Raspberry Pi and the power connector. Well, so Mark, production engineer Mark, we call him the magician. You know why?
Because he makes power adapters disappear?
Because he can make them disappear, dude. Like, boom! So I had no power supply for my Raspberry Pi. But you can obviously power it over USB.
Yeah.
So the USB cable that I had was kind of wonky, and it would move a little bit, and then in the middle of configuring it, my Raspberry Pi would shut off. And so while I was waiting for it to boot back up, I was reading on the Pi-hole GitHub thing about other articles that people had posted and other projects people do with them. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I did it in the cloud. I'm like, that's kind of a good idea. I'm like, they don't have to worry about a power cable going out on me.
Well, they do if you're in the data center and, never mind.
I like the time it takes you to download Raspbian, put it on an SD card, find an SD card, figure out what's on the SD card, make sure that it can be wiped, install it on the SD card, boot up Raspbian, and then configure it. I can have 2 DNS servers deployed in the cloud.
Yep. Now, see, my problem doesn't end up in those first couple of stages because I've already got the latest version of Raspbian downloaded already, which is on disk.
Right.
I've got a stack of SD cards that are in the Raspberry Pi toolbox. Yes, there's a giant fucking toolbox.
We should have I bet you the time it would take you to DD write Raspbian to an SD card, I could probably stand up 2 servers in DigitalOcean.
You probably could.
But mind you, there is an ongoing cost, of course.
That's a great point, John.
Have a droplet in the cloud, right? You're going to pay $5 a month or some number similar to that.
It's
a matter of cost versus return. Is it worth it for you?
Well, that said, if you think about if you stand up and you chose DigitalOcean, what if you do AWS at a T2 micro or a T1 micro that's free? Now it's only free for a certain period of time, but if you can spin it up fast enough, you pull that one down when it's out of the free tier, and you stand a new one up that's maybe in the new free tier, and you're good, done.
The nice part about having it in the cloud is you can point to it from anywhere. So potentially it can be a solution for multiple audiences. So it is a cost job, but you can share that cost across multiple different locations. So for me, office and home, I can now use the same DNS servers, and I'm managing it from one place. I did the $10 a month, 1 gig RAM. That's probably too much for this project. I've only ever seen it at 8% CPU utilization and not a whole lot of RAM usage. However, if you add a malware blacklist to it, that could increase. So I've got room to grow. I can add a bunch more. So that was kind of the gist of it. So to do what I did, you need some kind of cloud hosting provider. You can use AWS. You can use DigitalOcean, whatever your cloud hosting provider is. You need 1 or 2 instances to point to. I chose 1 gig Debian instances. I probably could have gone 512 and been fine. I was matching the RAM on the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B, which is a gig, correct? Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
So I was matching the RAM on those systems. Now, there are a lot of projects that the Raspberry Pi is perfect for that if you require some kind of physical access to them, that's where they shine. In this case, I was like, wait, I can just stand it up in the cloud. And that's what I did.
Don't you, hey, Paul, quick question. Don't you get a lot more processing power by standing it up in the cloud? I mean, let's be honest. You're probably getting a gig processor at least.
Absolutely. So you could point a lot of people at this DNS server, which in fact, I'll get to this point. If you know the IP address, you too can use it for recursive lookups because that's a limitation of DNS mask. I don't know if anyone's looked into that. Have you guys looked into that?
No.
So you know how like in Bind, how you can set up ACLs for who can do recursive lookups?
Yeah.
From my Google searching, that functionality does not exist in DNS mask.
Really?
Is that right? I never would have figured that.
And so basically what I found, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing an option somewhere, but like I spent time Google searching it, I'm like, everyone's like, you got to write IP tables rules. I'm like, well, that's kind of problematic because if I write IP tables rules, it says, okay, allow DNS for my static IP address like here in the office. I'm like, I still need to talk DNS to whoever I'm forwarding to, like Google, for example. So I got to add those in there too. I have those rules in here. I haven't tested them yet. Job, feel free to take a look at them and the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty sound, but I haven't tested them yet. The thing with this is a couple things. One, once you set up Pi-hole, and I mean, I can walk through the technical segment. Most of us listening, like really, it's basically 3 commands to get this. Like, it's the first command to download it with wget from the Pi-hole website. There's a second command to run the install script. It asks you a bunch of like really easy questions. And then I pre-installed DNS mask and light HTTPD on my instance, on my droplet, essentially. And then there's one command that I have in the show notes, wiki.securityweekly.com for episode 507. I created a cron job that basically every week goes and updates all the malware domains. Okay, so that's
nice.
That's the gist of it. It gives you a web interface. It gives you a password. Once you complete the setup, it gives you a password. You can log into the web interface, which makes it a little nervous. I'd probably modify my IP tables rules to restrict that from my IP addresses just to be safe in case there's some kind of heinous vulnerability in there. The last thing in the world you want is someone else with control of your DNS servers. That would be really bad.
You could always have them listen on 127.0.0.1 and then SSH port forward and then
correct. It's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good way to skin that cat as well. I was impressed with the web interface. There's a screenshot in the show notes. It gives you the number of requests it's received, the percentage that's blocked. It tells you your top domains, your forwarding destinations. I forwarded to Google. You can forward to. There's multiple options in there to forward to a preset list, and also enter custom ones in there as well that you're forwarding to.
Now, quick question, Paul. You talk about forwarding. Why would you not use the root domain services in the hints file? Why would you forward up to Google?
That's the way it's configured by default. I suppose you could. Can you forward to the root, or does that? No, you can't forward to the root. You need a hints file, correct?
Yeah, you just need a hints file, and that's the way traditionally DNS was configured to work, right? You use a hints file for anything that is required to be resolved from the top down, and then your DNS can appropriately cache work
from there, right? The problem is this uses
versus forwarding, versus forwarding that you've got, which means if you can't resolve it locally, you just go ahead and forward it to some other.
So
provider.
This is using DNS mask, which I don't know if it has options for a hints file. I'm sure that it does have options for a hints file, but it's not bind.
Gotcha.
The configuration's different, and in this process, some of the double-edged sword things is you don't need to be familiar with DNS mask to get this running. However, I do want to point out my link in the resources that I link to is from the author of Pi-hole that has pages and pages and pages of documentation as to how Pi-hole is set up. And if you want to go in there and customize blacklists and read about exactly how he set everything up, all of the source code is open source. You can read every single file that he produces as well. So, Geoff, you could most certainly customize it, I'm sure, to look at a hints file if DNS Mask supports that. Basically, anything in DNS Mask is on the table to support in this process. Unfortunately, I'm like way more familiar with Bind than I am with DNS Mask. Right. So this worked as kind of a... What in the other edge of the sword, right, is I really liked how easy it was to set up. Like, I could go... I think the compelling story about this tech segment, if you're going to tackle it, is you can stand up 2 DNS servers and have ad and malware blocking. Like, this should take you like 20 minutes tops. I mean, after you listen to this tech segment, it really should only take you like 15 minutes to go. And that's from like going to create your systems and configuring Pi-hole is like 15 minutes. So I like that about it. It was very convenient. Now, if you want to get into more of the configuration, absolutely. You want to do more of it yourself? Absolutely. Yep. The Pi-hole project has done a good job writing their scripts. I've looked at some of their source code. I mean, it is really sound. I know that the authors also said they were working on newer versions that use Python. Possibly, maybe someday they'll adopt Bind. I know it's an active project that they're working on.
Nice. And thinking about the way some of the IP tables rules, and we were talking, Geoff mentioned that you could just set the web interface on 127.0.0.1. Why not just set DNS mask to listen to 127.0.0.1 and do SSH port forwarding for that as well? Can you do UDP port forwarding with SSH?
Nah, I don't think so.
I'm not sure that you can, and you have the issue of you would need always to have a SSH session up and running before you could resolve DNS, even if you could. So
you say that like it's a bad thing.
It's a challenge.
Well,
right?
I mean, now thinking about that, going into a hotel, you might not be able to get SSH outbound before you.
So this is a good point. You could take this. One of the reasons I wanted to do this segment, and you guys bring up a fantastic point, is we talk about this whole privacy ruling with the ISPs being able to share your data. You could tunnel your DNS traffic over this. Now, the ISPs can still see your web traffic. It's certainly technically feasible and really not that difficult to pin up a VPN into a cloud hosting provider and then provide all of these services to yourself that do a web proxy, that also do DNS. So that basically, when you browse the web over your ISP's connection, it really just looks like a VPN connection to your hosting provider. Now, you're going to pay for that bandwidth in your hosting provider, which most of them, like Linode and DigitalOcean, are pretty liberal as to how much bandwidth they give you. So it's certainly possible that you could expand this so that no matter where you went, hotel or not, you're tunneling to a cloud provider. I'm sure there's even tutorials on how to set that up, right? You're web proxying and you're tunneling all your DNS traffic and you're benefiting from not just the privacy aspect, but what I love is I can go to Wired.com, and I don't have to look at ads or their stupid message that says, hey, you need to disable your ad blocker in your browser if you want to read our content, or you can pay us $1 a month. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do any of that. Also, the other thing that sparked it was when you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and you're on your mobile device, and if you see an article that's interesting and you click on it, sometimes, and I mean, you guys know this too, and our listeners know this too, like you click on it and you can't even see the content because there's so many ads.
Oh, my God.
And the security implications that Brad just talked about in the previous segment, I'm frightened to death. And I want to get rid of all of those ads because I just know there's bad things that happen in there. We talked, I think, last week about the ransomware that was like a little bug in the browser that you clicked on a porn link and it basically sent you this site that ransomwares you, and it just keeps you like an infinite loop. All you need to do is clear the browser cache, and it gets rid of it. But like, the internet is an evil place.
Yep.
So I really
Paul,
go ahead, Geoff.
Just curiosity. With this Pi-hole setup, what are you resolving your malware and adware domains to?
I knew you were going to ask that, Geoff.
127.0.0.1, or is it a specific address?
Yeah, it's localhost right now. You can certainly customize that, Geoff.
Okay.
As we've talked about in previous segments. So, I mean, ideally, you could set up what was your Tachyon net?
Yeah, Tachyon net. Yeah. Mhm.
You could probably pin that up in the cloud, Joff, and resolve it to that as well. You know what I'm saying?
Very good idea. Yeah.
So that's probably my next step is to do that. I'm like all about the cloud. After like my power issue, my Raspberry Pi, I'm like, I need to do more with this cloud stuff. I'm kind of like old school. I'm old.
It's amazing that you like went from this full-fledged computer thing to the Pi. Like, oh my God, the Pi is the greatest thing, and that lasted like 6 months.
And now I'm like, the cloud is the greatest thing. I have ADD. What can I say?
No, I mean the biggest thing with the cloud is that you have agility for deployment.
Yes.
And that's huge, right? I mean, the fact that you can dial up, I use it all the time. I'll be honest. The fact you can dial up a system, I use it for command and control infrastructure for penetration tests, especially red teams.
Oh yeah.
To dial up a system and to set up a command and control infrastructure in the cloud is an awesome capability. And if you combine that in with things like Ansible to automatically provision, it really gets very powerful.
What I liked about it too is I can be at the office, I can be at home, or I can be traveling, and I can use my DNS servers that I control and configure that offer me a level of protection. I think that's the most compelling reason to do that. So again, super easy to set up. All of the stuff is in the show notes. Very little impact. So when I implemented it, it was kind of funny. I was like, well, I need more than just myself to go to these to like really test it out. So I configured our local DNS servers that are for here.
Nice.
And the Cigar Lounge next door, by the way. I configured them that rather than point to Google, to point to my DNS servers that I set up with Pi-hole. And I had lots of DNS requests, and I was blocking lots of malware and ad domains, and not one complaint yet.
Nice.
Everyone,
that's a classic split DNS configuration, Paul.
Yes.
So good job, man. I mean,
well, in that way, locally, in my setup, I have 2 Raspberry Pis that are doing DNS. They're actually running bind, so I can have local domain. We have a local domain here, and we have stuff inside the domain and applications that rely on the local domain. Then for everything else that needs to be forwarded, it forwards up to my stuff in the cloud. Yep. I haven't noticed any performance. Like, there's no performance impact of any of that from what I found. And it's working really well. Everyone's happy with it. Everyone's enjoying an ad-free browsing experience, whether they're connected to the wireless on their mobile device or using their computer. So that was important for me. And then I'll point my firewall at home to these systems as well. Enjoy ad-free browsing at home. I think that's important. I think that, again, the next level is to pin up some kind of VPN when you travel. They'll also use these kind of services and even use a proxy. Would be my next steps with this project. Also important to implement those IP tables rules, which I have examples of in the show notes. There's some resources that I use to build these scripts and kind of build on it. Also, I really do want to mention that the Pi-hole project accepts donations, and not just donations in like the PayPal sense, but they have a referral code to DigitalOcean. So if you do this and you use DigitalOcean, you can give them the referral code when you build out your own servers for this project.
Nice.
So
awesome. That's really awesome.
Pretty cool, huh? So that's my Pi-hole in the cloud. After this, we're coming back with the security news for this week, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.